Hola estudiantes! We are going to be talking today about using preterite versus imperfect. This is one of those things that is never going away. We're going to work on this the next few weeks in class, but I want you to at least just kind of get an overview of what it is we're going to go over. So this is a quick diagram that I found that kind of shows you a graphic difference between the preterite and imperfect. As you can see, usually the preterite is used for those one moment in time type of things in the past, whereas the imperfect covers a larger span of time. It's not something that happened once, it's something that happened habitually. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but it's at least a start. So you should have this worksheet that I'm giving you that I would like you to keep during this couple of weeks. I think it helps. You're going to write a few notes on here. There's other things to look at as well, but this is where we're going to start. So if you look on the side that talks about the preterite, the first rule for using the preterite is when something happens in a specific time frame or within time limits. So you know that it started, you know that it ended, it all happened at one moment typically. So a few examples here are ayer fui al mercado. Yesterday I went to the market. We know it happened yesterday. You went, it's not like you did it repeatedly. Ella comenzó a leer. She started to read. The verb comenzar is very, very often going to be used in the preterite because the whole idea of starting something is a one moment in time type of thing. The same is true with the next verb, which is la clase terminó a las 4. It ended at 4, so that verb is essentially always going to be used preterite, but again, we know exactly when it happened, at 4 o'clock. There's a few key words here, and it'd be good to write these down in English in case you don't know them. I'm not going to go over all the English, but you'll see them pop up on the screen. But these are key words that when you see these words, you are going to use the preterite tense. The first one, anoche. También tenemos anteayer. Enseguida. And this one is because if it's happening immediately or suddenly, it's usually something that happened quickly. De repente, una vez, un día, a las 3, and I'd like it to be known that obviously a las 3 is at 3 o'clock. This could also be used for any other time, a las 5, a las 8, a las 11. Same is true for el lunes, el martes, el sábado, because we know exactly when it happened. En marzo, otra vez, en diciembre, en enero. Por fin, mis amigos llegaron. Una noche yo vi un fantasma. La semana pasada, we know exactly when it happened. But again, it could be anything pasada. El mes pasado, el año pasado, en 1979, el 19 de marzo. So all of these are just examples of triggers that will tell us that we need to use the preterite because we know exactly when it happened. If you need to, pause here and make sure you have written down the ones you were unsure of. The second reason to use the preterite is a completed past action. So this is kind of the same idea, but these are verbs, like I've mentioned, that are usually a one moment in time type of verb. Ella abrió la puerta. Yo dije hola. So when she opened the door, that's not something you do over and over. She opened it, it's done, it's open. Yo dije hola. I said hello. You say it once and it's done. Reason number 3 gets a little trickier because these are things that are using both, if you notice. Estaban and llamó. We've got both preterite and imperfect in this sentence. So estaban estudiando cuando el director llamó. They were studying when the principal called. So this is going to be mentioned both on the preterite side and the imperfect side. That we have something that was happening. There's our imperfect. It was in action when somebody called, and that calling is the interrupting that is going to make it preterite. So the interrupting part is the preterite. We've got a few verbs here that are going to change meaning when used in the preterite. So for the verbs saber, conocer, poder, querer, if you want them to mean the thing you've always known them to mean, like to know or to be able to or to want, use them in the imperfect. We're going to not talk about this as much now, but there's these 4 verbs that you need to know that will change meaning if used in the preterite. We've also got a series of completed actions. Ella llegó a la casa, entró por el garaje y subió la escalera. She did boom, 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 things that are over and done. For number 6, the key word here is changes. So if there's a mental, emotional, or physical change, that will be preterite. We're going to get to the other emotions in a minute. So, mi mamá se enojó cuando llegué tarde. She became angry when I arrived late. She wasn't mad before then, but as soon as I was late, that's when she became mad. So again, it's that change. Now let's look into the imperfecto side of things. The first reason that we're going to use the imperfecto is the background, the setting, the description. These are all of those things, and we put weather in parentheses because these are the things that are setting the scene. It was windy. It was a beautiful day when we were all going to the store. So it's all of that descriptive, fluffy language that's getting you ready for the events in action. Also, here's the action in progress. This is the thing that's often being interrupted. So he was working when it started to rain. So papá trabajaba cuando empezó a llover. Again, what he was doing is the imperfect part, and the preterite will be the thing that interrupted his working. Telling time, date, age, and name in the past is almost always going to be imperfect. The reason being this description. So these are the things that are setting the scene. They are describing it was 3 o'clock. It was the 12th of April. He was 70 years old. Again, he was 70. That's a specific age, but he was 70 for a full year. And his name was Juan. That didn't change. He was always named Juan. But if you notice on the middle sentence, era el 12 de abril cuando el accidente ocurrió. So there, once again, we have preterite because we know the date it happened, so the action itself will be preterite. However, the date side of it is the description, and that will be imperfect. I'm going to talk about that a little more in class because that part is a little bit confusing. The fourth one is the one that's used the most often. It's that habitual, repeated, continuous actions. Anytime you want to say, I used to do this. Notice here, instead of el lunes, which I said was preterite, it says los lunes yo iba de compras. So we know this was multiple Mondays. Every Monday I used to go shopping. So when you see the los lunes, that means it happened habitually. El lunes means last Monday I did this. So here's a few key words that every time you see these words, you're going to use the imperfect. Siempre, cada día, todos los días, frecuentemente, a veces, muchas veces, y mientras. So when you see those, know that you're probably going to be using imperfect. And the last two here are the progressive tense. If you're going to use estar plus the gerund, which is the ing in English, Jorge estaba cantando en el corro. He was singing in the choir. So this is something that he was doing. This time it wasn't interrupted, but it was the fact that he was in the process of doing it. And last, we have the mental, emotional, and physical conditions. So this is describing your emotions. Again, we go back to the whole description thing. So description and habitual is when we're going to use imperfect. So anytime we're describing people's emotions or conditions about them, los estudiantes eran inteligentes. They were really smart. Estábamos nerviosos. We were really nervous. Again, when your emotions change, it becomes preterite, but your emotions in general are just going to be imperfecto. Ok, aquí tenemos la práctica. Ustedes van a escribir dos oraciones que usan pretérito o imperfecto y explica por qué usas el tiempo que usas. So why are you using whichever tense you chose to use? I want you to write the sentences in Espanol and then in English tell me, I use this because it was description. I use the preterite because it was a completed action. So tell me what it is that you used and why. And you can text these to my Google Voice number. You can write them on paper and bring them into class. You can email me. As long as I have these before class, you are good. Gracias. Adios.